Hi, I'm Zandile Mkhwanazi, and I am the CEO of Go Code.
And I'm Denise Chinipin, Technology Portfolio Executive at Bet Software.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Technically Speaking, a Go Code podcast in partnership with Bet Software, where we are talking to and about amazing women on the African continent who are doing amazing things in the tech industry. We hope that you are educated, inspired, and motivated to take up space within the tech industry.
Joining us today is a very special guest. We've got Avantika Devnat, who is one of our graduates here at Bet Software.
So, Avantika, I think maybe start us with your affiliation with Bet Software. Where did that start?
Okay, so I joined Bet in 2022 as a bursary recipient. I've gotten a second bursary in 2023. Towards the end of last year, I interned as an information technology intern, and I got to have a look around the company, decide where I want to be, and I've decided to go into the dev space. So I applied for the graduate program, joined in Feb this year, and now I'm a software developer in global support.
Amazing. So today's topic is the money talk, all right, which is touching on salaries. It's June, Youth Month. We know that we have quite a huge unemployment crisis within the country, and young people are looking for ways, obviously, to get into corporate and start earning. But one of the key things that I think is important when getting your first job is understanding salary expectations. I know we all want to earn a lot, right?
Yes.
Especially starting out, we want the big bucks, and sometimes you might even sort of reject an offer because you feel that I've been to university, I've studied this and that, I should be earning, 30,000 Rand on my first paycheck. But I think from your point of view, I just want to understand, was there any sort of thought and preparation when you started in terms of salary expectations that you wanted, and you're like, I need to be earning this much, or you kind of, went with what was offered to you?
Okay, so I did have expectations, but also I kept in mind that I am a graduate. In terms of experience, I had none. So when I looked at my offer letter, I was like, okay, being a grad straight out of campus, like fresh, it was okay.
Yeah. So maybe let me share a bit about my story also. Being a graduate many years ago, I think same, right? I was fresh out of university, but I think where I saw it differently is, one, I'd done my master's. Two, I had worked on a project with some students at MIT. And so when I was offered, which was a standard offer to all the graduates, I was a bit bold. I was like, no, I think I should be getting a bit more. But I think it's important for young people to also understand what value you bring in, right? So like you said, fresh graduates. But I think for my case, I was like, look, this is what I've been able to do. I've worked with students from an internationally recognized institution. I think, I'm just a little bit, above the normal graduate, but it's not an easy discussion to have, especially as a fresh graduate. And I think maybe, Denise, from your point of view, where you're on the other side of it, right, where young people are coming in and some might have a bit of unrealistic expectations, like how do you tackle that and how do you have that conversation with graduates?
So before I get there, I want to take a few steps back, right?
Okay.
Now, let's focus on Zandile and her tactic to negotiate. I just want to get a sense of how were you feeling at that time? I imagine you were feeling a little bit anxious because it's like, oh, they're going to go for it, or they're not going to go for it. What Tell us a little bit about that, because I'm sure the viewers are going to want to hear about what emotions are going to be going through at that time, and how did you obviously work through it so that you could be the bold self and step up and ask for what you wanted?
Yeah, no, it's very nerve-wracking because there's obviously the possibility of them saying no. Okay, you're not serious, you don't want this opportunity. So I did think about that, which is why I think it's important as a young person to come prepared and come with facts, not emotions, not, oh, I feel I should get this much. This is, what I think or what I've done. This is the value it could bring. You're not going to be spending 6 months training me because I've done X, Y, and Z. So there was a bit of fear, right? There was anxiety, even as I sat there next to who'd be potentially
course.
my boss and said, I like your offer, but, I think bump it up a bit. So there was a bit of that. And I just told myself that, look, I think the fortunate part also is that I was in a privileged position, right? I knew that my degree was highly valued at that time. I actually also had another offer, which was closer to what I wanted, but the organization I didn't feel would be fit for kind of what I wanted to get into. So I had a bit of like, okay, if they say no, I'll accept the lower one. But if they say yes, then they say yes. So yeah, that's how I went about it, and that's just part of my personality, to be honest. Like, you just ask for what you want, but also have the facts to back you up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with that because often, I see it happen all the time, whether it's through new recruits who are actually coming through our talent system. Often they are very bold and they're wanting a certain amount of value, right? This is what I want to get paid. And for us sitting on the other end, it's not an easy thing, It's not. It may sound as if it comes across as us saying no very easily, but we do want to make sure that at the end of the day, there's this fair exchange. At least I like to see it as a fair exchange, right? It's a case of what value are you bringing into the business, and how am I perceiving that value in terms of the salary, the money amount, and it's easy to pick out those who are just really pushing the envelope, and we certainly see that happen very often, but more importantly, I think it's really comes down to the conversation. So yes, it happens. By far, I think the stats are something like in the region of around 70% of people don't actually negotiate salary. I don't know if you knew that, but that's kind of where things stand. The 30% who do often get that, but it's a case of meeting somewhere in the middle, right? And it's all based on the value. Because for me, as a person who's now going to have to pay you that salary, I need to understand, Zandile, what are you bringing to the table? How is that going to add value to my business in order for us to have this partnership? Because that's essentially what it is, right?
Yes.
You come in, you do a job, you get your salary. That's the end of that. And I think the other important element is around the team member themselves, the candidate, being able to understand what their worth is. Now, my story is different. I was, new to the gaming space when I started, came in as my first job, actually not really looking for a job, but being called to interview. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll come in. And lo and behold, 3 weeks later, they gave me a phone call and said, wow, you're successful with this job. And I was like, oh, I'm still studying, guys. I don't actually need a job. But the salaried amount at that time was this sort of set basic. And there wasn't much room for negotiation. Also, at that stage, and I remember we're talking 25 years ago, right? 25 years ago, it was unheard of that women would actually step up and ask for more. So culturally, and even in that environment, it was very different because what you were offered was what you accepted. Now, when I look at it, and actually thinking about where what my journey has looked like and where I've up until this point working through that, I've employed those aspects of negotiate. So rocking up and being hired at Bet Software was definitely a negotiation, right? One that I'm actually confident and I'm very happy to say was in favor of what I actually wanted. So I think those are all pieces that we need to sort of work through and understand, and understanding your worth as a woman in the space. I always say that there are so few of us in the technology space. If we don't have that voice to step up and actually ask, the ladies and the women coming behind us are not necessarily going to.
Yeah. That's
So
true.
being that example, almost lighting that way or paving the path, I think is a huge step for us in the right direction as women.
Yeah, actually, to segue from that, I think maybe it would be interesting to understand from your perspective if you feel like do you have the necessary tools, right, to be able to confidently walk in and negotiate? And where do you think that should be happening? Like from home? Should it be in university? Should we be teaching, young people this is how you negotiate, this is how you think about salaries, this is how you measure yourself? I don't know, what's your experience and take on it?
Okay, I think it should actually start in university when you actually have your mindset and you know where you're going and you're able to understand, like, for example, which industry you're going into. You can do relevant researches, you know what's going on, and it would actually like guide you. So by the time you get to the workspace, you have an idea as to what to expect.
Yeah, I think that's a critical gap we've seen. Also, us within Gold Code, right? So obviously, we work with young women trying to get them their first job opportunity, and we've just seen that there's nowhere in their lives where someone has actually set them down and said, "Okay, this is how you talk about money."
Yes.
I think money is almost in a lot of households like taboo. Like we don't talk about money, we don't budget, we don't talk about budgeting or any of that. And I think I'd even challenge and say it's something that needs to be taught from a young age, right? In terms of not fearing money and not fearing talking about it. We've just seen, and also I think the unfortunate thing is not having anyone in your household that has had the experience, right? Because you don't have a mom that's working in corporate or a dad that's working in corporate to guide you and say, this is how you go about it. When you get offered, this is the right time to accept it as it is, and then this is the right time to push back and say, actually, I think, I deserve this much. So I think it's just something we need to kind of dismantle from a home perspective. I know, I think I was fortunate because my father's an entrepreneur. So we always talked money with us in the household, which is partly maybe I was never like
Yes.
shy or scared because, being an entrepreneur, I've had to see him hustle and, all of that. So it was engraved in me that you can talk money, you can say this is my price or this is my value. So I just think that's something that's perhaps, I don't know if you agree, that's missing even like within a household. Do you feel like your parents maybe, like if they prepared you to be able to negotiate salaries?
Okay, so I have siblings that's in the same industry that I am in, so I've got a lot of insight from what to expect.
Yes.
So when it comes to money, yeah, I'm all clued up there.
No, that helps, right? Having someone that's in the
Yes.
industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know up until this point we've been talking about negotiating a salary when you are starting a role. You're in a role right
Yeah.
now. Obviously, from my perspective as a business person, essentially what is important to me is, are you growing? How are you developing your skills in order for me to be able to look at investing more in you? Whether it's by way of just development and training, but more importantly, to almost sort of justify additional remuneration, right? So I want to talk to you about, or I'd like to hear from you what your plans are for the next 6 to 12 months in terms of adding more value to yourself from a knowledge base such that you can actually essentially add value back into the business, and then that goes full circle. Is there a plan?
Yes, there is, most definitely. Okay, so straight when I got into grad program, I found myself a mentor that I could be very open with in terms of like the workspace, and obviously communicating with my team members to obviously play my role.
Yeah.
And in the development space, there's a lot. So it's not just like one little thing, there's thousands of things that you need to learn. So I've been communicating with the team, getting relevant resources, obviously, in terms of my certifications. I plan to start that in the next 2 months, and that's obviously accordingly to what my team requires, because I'm going to be based in this team for development. And in terms of my further qualifications, I plan to do my honors next year, and from there, it's just going to be a Microsoft upskilling.
So I know that Bet Software is, I mean, we are busy, right? You're in probably the most
Very, very busy.
busiest space of our business right now. And so I'm curious to understand how you intend on juggling honors and work. I think that's very important because you're putting a lot of effort into developing yourself, and essentially what it is, it's adding to you. Yeah. How's that gonna work? What is your plan to juggle that?
Okay, so last year when I was interning, it was basically working and studying at the same time. And in my first month, it was actually in my finals, and I was at BET. So I've learned to plan myself accordingly, space out my time for work and for studying. And I feel like I have it in there because I have experienced it, so it's all good.
Okay. I think you also have siblings, as you said, that have been in the space before. So there's almost there's almost this experience that you can leverage on as well, right? Which is,
I have guidance,
yes,
so it's all good.
That does certainly help. Now, to lead on from that, what advice would you give our viewers in an instance where there are no siblings?
Yeah,
there are no
yes.
people like Zandile has had as a father who has helped her to be bold, to speak out. What advice do you have to offer for those young ladies who are in that starting position?
Okay, I would say just be yourself, and in terms of research, it's very important. So even though I do have a sibling that's in the industry, I did get some knowledge from him, but the rest of it was all up to me. Finding the job, getting the bursary, it was all done by me. It was all done by myself. And I guess it's just, you need to motivate yourself and put yourself out there and not be scared. If something goes wrong, it's going to be okay. You'll get back up and it will work out eventually. It may not happen the first time or the second time, but you will get there.
I like that. I think being bold seems to be the theme of what we're saying, right? And certainly as a young person who almost a lot of them are kind of desperate, right, to get their foot in the door. So it's kind of easy to also accept something that you also feel like this is not enough to survive, right? This is not enough to even, there's certain areas where people are earning just enough to go to work, come home, eat, go to work, come. Yeah. There isn't enough for anything. So I think I like what you said. You need to also continuously upskill yourself. And that's how you show the value, right?
Yes.
To corporate and say, look, yes, when I started, I only had a degree. But now I have an honors, I have a master's. And I've been doing that whilst also delivering, which is important because you also don't want to stop, and yes. That's where your question about being able to balance. You need to still show up and show value and also show that you can actually do more, right? And this is where you need to upskill yourself. And the internet is vast. There's so much information out there. You need to use it for the right reasons. Find out what is out there, what are people earning. There's lots of tools like PayScale, right, where you can just put in I want to become a software engineer. What are they earning? So that you also know the benchmark of what people are earning. There's a lot of reports that are out there. Offazen has a state of the developer report that people can read and figure out, okay, the pay in Cape Town is more than Johannesburg. Maybe I need to move to Cape Town, and understand also why is that. And also I think when we're talking about salaries, it's also something else that I really want to touch on. It's so tempting when you get your first salary to splurge, You're laughing. I want to hear your thoughts on that because you're not thinking, how do I think a lot of young people, you're not thinking, okay, I'm going to get this much, I need to do this and that and that. That's where like budgeting and I need to save. It's just like, oh, okay, I've got 15,000 rand. I'm going shopping. I'm buying makeup. I'm doing all these things. So just from you seem like you're on the ball. But when you got your first salary, like had you already planned out what you need to do with it, or it just hit the bank and then you were like out to the mall?
Okay, I think when it comes to that, it's very dependent on the household that you come from.
Yeah.
Like you said, not everybody has their parents or siblings to guide them or like anything in that line. So if, for example, if you're on your own, you obviously have to budget and manage your expenses. Whereas if you're staying with your family, okay, I'd use myself an example. You don't have that many responsibilities, like paying rent, food, and all of those things. So it basically depends on your situation, I would say.
Yeah. No, that's very true. But I think budgeting is quite
Even though
critical.
you don't have responsibilities, it is very important for the future. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's one lesson I would say for young people to remember. And even understanding the salary that you're accepting, how far it'll go. So I think sometimes, and a key thing also, right, which we saw with one of our graduates that we put, and she accepted an offer. So you get made an offer at 25,000 C2C. And you're thinking, great, I'm going to see 25,000 Rand in my bank account. And then the bank is like, where's the rest of my money? We had someone actually call us like, I'm not sure how to, tell the company that they didn't pay me what they offered me. And that's because she didn't understand tax implication. And it's like, no, it's like, no, but I thought I was getting 25,000 Rand. So there's also those gaps in terms of understanding salary, and when you're negotiating, what are you negotiating for? Or even if you're not negotiating, when you're accepting an offer, you need to understand that when you're accepting 25, and to be honest, at that time also, I was quite shocked because I also was expecting to see that amount, right? So it's a bit of education, and I'm sure maybe when you guys make an offer, you show the pay slip and all of that.
Yes, absolutely. So we have had instances like that where, people have come in and said, yes, we're accepting this offer, and then only to come back and say, oh, sorry, I'm not going to accept the offer anymore because I've worked it out and it's actually less than what I'm currently sort of getting. So what we've done differently and how we've changed it is we provide candidates with an offer letter, and then we also highlight for them those benefits on the offer letter. But in addition to that, we almost sort of put together a little bit of a mock payslip. So they actually get to see where the money is going. There's UIF, which obviously is there for our benefit, absolutely. There's then the Provident Fund that we actually have at BET. So all of those things are actually listed out as the expenses that would come out. And then you have your tax portion. Yes. And then it actually shows you this is what you're going to end up at the end of the month, every month. So this is what your standard, your base would be, and then this is actually what your net income is going to be coming off at the end of every month. And it really has actually helped candidates who sign on with us to be able to understand upfront what they are coming into. We certainly haven't then had scenarios where the money's gone into the bank, and then you've got someone phoning us and going like, oh, actually, I expected a lot more, and this is what I'm actually getting there. And I think, understanding that tax portion is absolutely important. We live in South Africa. The personal tax that you pay, it's not even a set amount as a percentage.
Yeah.
It varies as you get higher and higher and higher on the salary bands, right? So understanding those things in terms of what you are getting, making sure that you are aware upfront that you fall in a 10% or a 16% or whatever that is absolutely important. So that you are almost setting yourself up as an expectation in terms of what you can do and what you are getting. I think for me, the very, very important elements around the whole money and the use of it, budgeting you mentioned earlier, Sandile. I grew up in a household where my father with 3 other sisters, of course, with me, was very focused on saying, there's a portion that you need to make sure that you keep away as a savings. And it was certainly something that I did in my early stages. I put a little bit away, I spent a little bit, so I did have a little bit of a shop here, do this, do that, had my eye on that pair of shoes. And so it was spending that money, but also making sure that a portion of that was actually saved and kept away. And there were moments where I was able to dip into that, because in the early stages of my career, I had to fund my skill development, right? I had to fund the learning. Where was I going to come from? I certainly wasn't going to go back to my parents and ask them for money who, there wasn't enough to go around as it was. So that actually helped for me to reinvest in myself. And I look back at that and I go, wow, how much of that wisdom that came in from the savings initially has actually helped accelerate me to where I am now. Yeah. So I think that's actually very important, for our viewers to also understand that absolutely you need to enjoy the benefit of your laboring, of your work, but at the same time, practice a little bit of wisdom in terms of keeping some away. You never know when or what you're going to need it for.
100%. I think maybe if you can, obviously you're at the beginning stages of your career, and so are a lot of our co-coders. So maybe from a money and salary and negotiation, what are the key things, you'd like to leave as advice or caution to say, look out for this or look out for that, or things that you didn't think about? We just talked about tax. Right? I don't think anyone who's not earning, who's not paying tax, is not thinking about tax until you have to pay tax. So maybe 1 or 2 things that you feel, now that you are here and have this experience, you'd like to sort of impart.
Okay, so as Denise has mentioned, BET offers a full breakdown of what's going on with your salary. So if you're not getting the exact amount, you know where it's going. And if your company doesn't obviously break that down for you, I would suggest going through, researching it, and obviously getting more knowledge. So that would make it easier for you to understand exactly what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think even if they don't automatically do that, just asking HR and say, okay, could you do a mock payslip for me? I just want to see what my salary would look like. I think it's something that we don't think about, or young people wouldn't necessarily think about until,
I think
you said,
now that I've actually started a job, I feel that's the first thing you should consider looking at. Yeah, it's the first thing.
Yeah, because then it also helps you, to be able to make that decision to see if that salary is good for you. So, yeah, no, I like that. And I think for me, the kind of key thing that I got from the conversation is really research is important. Yeah. Number one, you need to know the industry you're going into. Yes. You need to understand what the base salaries are. But I think also, once you've done the research, then you need to equip yourself. You need to upskill yourself and make sure that you are ready to tackle the industry, but to continuously learn. I think that theme has been coming up more and more. Yeah. If you are sitting at home right now and you're unemployed and you've got a degree, don't just sit. Do something. There's so many online things now that you can do to upskill yourself and get certificates. Even if it's not going to university where, potentially there's additional costs and stuff like that, there's a lot of online resources where you can upskill yourself. So by the time you get a job opportunity, you kind of can say, this is what I've been doing. Just maybe to bring the point across again, recently I saw a post, right, of a lady on LinkedIn who's 36 years old. Obviously, when you talk youth, it's 18 to 35. And she just turned 36, and she was talking about how she hasn't been employed since she finished her degree, and she's sort of been doing side hustles. And one of the people on the post was like, okay, yes, you've been doing side hustles, but how else have you been equipping yourself for the job that you want?
Yes.
And she didn't answer, because chances are you're just waiting and trying to apply and the years are going. But it's get online, do some research, find out what other courses are there, and equip yourself to be able to do that.
And that was actually what I wanted to add, because at the end of the day, right, you're sitting at home, you don't have a job, but you have a base on which you can start with already. Go out there, identify a job that you are wanting to do, find out what it takes to learn and fill in that gap and work at it.
Yep.
It's then no longer wasted time, right?
Yes, exactly.
No longer wasted
and
time.
even volunteering. I think that's something else that people underestimate. Like you're saying, go volunteer into organizations that can give you the experience that you need. Because often I think it's that double-edged sword, like we want experience, but how do you get experience without getting a job? And at the same time, you want a job that pays you a lot, but you're not experienced.
Yes,
you can go
yeah.
like in circles.
Circles.
But yeah, I think, it's been quite insightful. And I think just from your experience and being in the space, already there are young people that are listening to you and are thinking, okay, this is what I need to be thinking about, because we underestimate like how much information or knowledge people have. So it's important to share our stories so that young people know, what to look out for, and they are better equipped than we are. So really, I want to thank you for joining us on the Money Talk episode. It's always difficult to talk about money, right? And sometimes it can get uncomfortable because we sort of just don't really want to get into it.
Yeah.
So really appreciate your insights, and more than anything, you're an inspiration, to young people out there, and we need more women in the tech space, of course. That's what this is also about. So we're really grateful for that. But before we close, what we usually do is we have a Woman Crush Wednesday that we kind of highlight. So while you think about your Woman Crush Wednesday, Denise, I'm going to start with you. Do you have a Woman Crush Wednesday?
So quick think on feet, yeah. So I'm going to say my Woman Crush Wednesday is Sheryl Sandberg. And why I say for today, given the topic, is so obviously Sheryl. She's now ex-CEO, COO of Meta, but that book that we talked about, obviously that she's written, Lean In. It's an amazing book in terms of being able to empower women. But more importantly, there's a lot of content in that book that actually talks about how we should be able to be in a position of empowering each other towards negotiating a better equity across the board. And I think a lot of what she's done has really actually helped, for me, pave that way in terms of the advice that I give women. How about yours, Zandi?
Love it. For me this week, it's going to have to be Kimberly Bryant. So Kimberly started Black Girls Code in America. It's similar to what we do at Girl Code, and essentially it's just about empowering young girls and showing them that they do belong in the tech space, and not only showing them, but giving them the necessary skills and training and opportunities. And you talked about mentorship earlier. Mentorship is so important because it gives you someone to say, okay, this person is guiding me, but also I can see that they've made it. So therefore I can make it, right? It also talks to representation. So yeah, Kimberly, she's amazing. I love the organization. It's global as well. So she's done a lot in terms of just giving young girls, especially Black girls, the confidence to know that I too belong, in the tech space. So yeah.
I'm so blank at this point.
I know, we just put you on the spot, right?
That's fine, though.
But don't worry, it's absolutely fine. I think, if anything, you are an inspiration and someone's Woman Crush Wednesday out there, because you are like here, you are conquering the space that you're in, and you just, you're fearless. Like, that's what I got from you. You're very fearless. So thank you for being with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this episode. And if you're inspired, then the next episode is definitely going to inspire and empower you, where we'll be talking about the different careers in tech. It's going to be a roundtable where we'll have phenomenal women talking about different careers that are in the tech space. So please do tune in. Whilst we wait for that episode, make sure to keep the conversation going on social media. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow, engage, and comment on all various social media channels that we are in. So thank you, and looking forward to another episode.